This is the Last Minute Blues Podcast with Donnie, Alex, Jeremy, and Jeff Burton.
I got to tell you guys, I know that there should be a great way to start this, but I am so drunk with Blues hockey right now, I have no idea what to do with myself.
Oh, that's the way.
My game days, I am waking up going, only 9 hours until drop of the puck or whatever the hell. For Alex Ferrario from 101 ESPN, Jeremy Rutherford from The Athletic, I'm Donnie Fandango. And people, your Blues are on freaking fire. Fire. All right. And so last night, watching that third period, all right, we're just jumping right into it.
Jumping right in.
So I'm watching the third period. There's about 5-6 minutes left. And I start thinking to myself, you know what? They can't win every game. You know, what did you expect them to figure out the way to win everything? And then 3.5-4 minutes later, I'm screaming my friggin' head off when they scored with 30 seconds left in the game. Holy cow. Please don't pinch me. I don't want to
give him
wake
some
up.
credit. It was 29 seconds left, not 30.
Sorry.
True or false, Donnie moonwalked when that goal went in. He was like, yeah, buddy.
I did not, but I told you guys off air, my son heard me yelling so much from his room that he came out because he thought something was wrong. And I was just, I mean, it was just, hell yes, swear word, hell yes, swear word.
There probably was something wrong. Let's not kid ourselves, but the Blues did score too. Two things were going on at once. Hey, I got to be honest too. You know, I go to the Twitter tweets and get my tweet ready, capital FINAL, final. Red Wings 1, Blues nothing, and you get ready to hit the tweet button because we've got to make that elevator. As soon as the game's over, we make that elevator. So Kyra scores. Oh, delete space, delete space, delete space.
And luckily, JR's not writing a game story like you used to do because it's not just delete space, delete space. It's highlight, delete 900 words, start from scratch.
Alex even remembers the word count. How about that?
Guys, I mean, like, you know, I just want to kind of try to, for a second, put it into perspective, because as sports fans, you have a lot of times where things are not going your way, where you are questioning everything, where sometimes the games make you unhappy, or not really unhappy, but, you know, whatever.
Miserable.
And we are just right in the middle of just an amazing freaking run, one of the best stories in the entire NHL during the course of the season. And, you know, over the course of a couple of weeks, it's gone from, hey, I think we might make the playoffs, to we are going to make the playoffs, to who are we going to play in the first round? Yeah. Who are we going to give a freaking boatload of trouble to in the first round? We have no reason to believe that this team can't not only get into the playoffs, but can whoop some ass once they get in the playoffs, or at the very least, they are not going to be an easy out for anybody in which that they play. I am so freaking happy right now.
Yeah, I mean, I've said this since the 10-game win streak started. I'm not sure another team is going to be able to beat the Blues in 7 games. Like, it is going to be very difficult for a team to take them down when they're playing this way. Now, I think it's also important to state, like, 2 of the last 3 games, a lot of the players have said, look, we didn't play our best. The Nashville game and then that Detroit game. Even Jim Montgomery said last night, like, look, we made some decisions that our brains weren't there. And he said maybe it was the 2 days off, I'm not sure. But that's the part that I think should inspire a lot of people of what's taking place, because you're tied for the second longest win streak in franchise history right now. You're not playing your best hockey, and you're still finding ways to win. Now, it's Detroit. It's Nashville. You should be beating those teams. But with their poor performance, they're still finding ways to stay in the hockey game and push their way in. And me personally, when you're playing this hot, when you feel like you just can't be beat, when your mind's right, those are the toughest opponents to deal with once the playoffs begin.
And regardless of the opponent, it's the adversity that you deal with and how you deal with it. And you look at that last night. I mean, they couldn't make a pass. There's turnovers, Jake Neighbors, Justin Falk, you know, so on and so forth. And then there they are again in the third period. Like Jim Montgomery said last night, the third period is when we tighten up, button things up. That's what you're going to need in the third period, obviously, of playoff games. And look at the decisions that they make that lead to the success here. You know, we'll get into Jimmy Snuggerud later, I'm sure, but we talked about, do you mess with the chemistry? Jim Montgomery says, hey, we got a good player. We're going to add him. Look at they pulled a goalie with 3:23 left because he felt like they were generating nothing, couldn't get anything going, and they get that game-winning goal that causes Donnie to light up the house.
Literally light up the house.
29 seconds ago, not 30, and then they get the goal in overtime. Cam Fowler. I mean, just the decisions that are being made and the way they're playing when you think they might be out of that game. That's what you're going to need in the playoffs.
Real quick, because like you said, what I think is so important, when you look at how teams play in the playoffs, first period is where you jump off to a lead. Third period is where you tighten up and you either hold on to the lead or you regain it and you win it from there. Think of the first and third period that they just had against the Detroit Red Wings last night. They outshot Detroit 11-3 in the first period, and then in that third period, you make the aggressive move, you pull the goaltender. I personally thought that penalty kill was a massive momentum swing that Zach Bolduc took the slashing penalty on. Mm-hmm. You pull the goalie, you score it to tie it late, and then you win it in overtime. Like, those are two periods that are pillars of teams that have success in the playoffs.
All right, so, and I know one of the things that we don't normally do is kind of get too far into like the weeds with game details, but I do want to ask this question that I was thinking about last night. Was last night a game in which that the Blues were just maybe not on their P's and Q's like they need to be, or was Detroit specifically doing something other than having Talbot, who looked friggin' fantastic last night? Were they doing something that was making the Blues kind of change up their game or keeping the Blues from doing what they have been doing so well during this streak?
I don't think so. I mean, Detroit, They're still kind of in that mix a little bit, but I don't think they were doing anything out of the ordinary. I just saw players not connecting on passes and just not generating anything like we've seen from this Blues team. And, it's weird because now it sticks out like a sore thumb because we're not used to seeing the team play that way. And as Alex said, Jim Montgomery talked about a couple things, 2 days off. It took him a while to get going. But, I'm of the belief, and I know you guys, we've talked about this in the past, that I'd rather show that you can win a game like that, again, regardless of the opponent, than these 5-1, 6-1 games that the Blues have been winning in the past. Show that in-game you can overcome playing as sloppy as you did. Now, you're going to have to clean it up for the playoffs. I mean, you play a playoff team like you did last night in the first two periods against the Red Wings and don't capitalize on some scoring chances, fumble some you're going to be down 3-0 in the playoffs. So don't get me wrong, they have to clean that up, but I think that last night was more about what the Blues didn't do than what the Red Wings did.
Yeah, I thought Nashville game, actually, the other team played it well. Like that Nashville game, I thought Nashville did a really good job of clogging up the middle of the ice so the Blues couldn't get to the front of the net, and they were standing the Blues up in the neutral zone so that those speed plays didn't work. Detroit wasn't doing any of that. Detroit game, it just felt like the Blues were looking for a play and were fumbling the puck in their own end. Like, these zone exits were not as crisp as we've seen them. Like, in the other 9 games this season, it's been one touch and then they're out of the zone. And last night, it took 2 or 3 chances to get out of the zone. But JR's right. Like, I would much prefer a team that knows that they can still win even when they don't have their best versus going out there for 10 in a row and just annihilating the competition. Because then you get fat and happy. Then you just assume everything's going your way. And like bounces last night, they were getting some favorable bounces against Detroit. You can't assume that always happens. So I want those types of games in the middle of a streak like this to realize, hey, we need to tighten things up, regardless that we've won 10 in a row.
All right, so I'm going to make an observation that is probably not a great observation, or maybe one that you've made in past podcasts that just did not.
Probably wrote about it.
Or that you wrote about it. Yeah.
Donnie didn't read that.
But it seems as though, or at least I'm noticing more now, or maybe just because I'm paying attention to it, but like it just seems as though the way that the Blues, when the other team has it in their offensive zone, it just seems like the Blues do this unbelievable job of, like clogging up every area in that slot and in the middle so shots aren't getting through. And if they do get through, it seems like it's something that Hofer or Benner can handle. Is this something that Monty brought in? Is this something that they've been doing all along? Am I high? I mean, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, but
not
it just
right now.
right now. But like, it just seems, obviously, especially on the kill, and I know that that's a particular way that you kill a penalty by collapsing in the middle. But like, is that something that they're doing on a more regular basis, or what are they doing? Because Benner is standing on his head when he needs to, but also, I don't think a lot of teams are getting a lot of grade A chances on top of it.
Yeah, last night wasn't a great example because there were backdoor tap-in opportunities, which typically don't take place. But at least prior to that game against Detroit, me personally, I feel like you're seeing 3 layers of defense when the other team has the puck. Like when they're coming out of their own end, you've got that first player that's challenging, kind of, I guess, a 1-2-2 you'd call it. The first player is challenging the initial try and outlet from Detroit, and then you've got 2 guys standing right at between the red line and Detroit's blue line. So that's that second wave. And then the third wave is the Blues defensemen that are standing on their blue line. So the opposition has to find a way to go through 3 different layers before they can even get into the zone. which typically that means you got to dump the puck down, you got to go chase after it, and then good luck with how the Blues have been playing.
Yeah.
So, and Thomas said this after I think it was after the Nashville Predators game. He said teams have to get through 3 layers before they worry about Jordan Binnington or Joel Hofer, and then take into consideration those guys who have been playing well.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think this is a Jim Montgomery thing. I think this is a structure. I remember when we talked to Ben Bishop right when Monty was hired, who played with him in Dallas, and, they went from, I forget who the coach was prior to Jim Montgomery in Dallas, but they brought in Jim Montgomery, and Bishop told us the first thing he realized was as a goaltender, he saw very few odd man rushes from the opposition. That, to me, is a structure that Jim Montgomery has put in place.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing, and you can talk about 2 different types of situations. One is a rush against, an odd man rush coming the Blues' way, Binnington's way, and the forwards are getting back. Like, it's tremendous. When I'm stating the obvious here, but when teams are bought in like the Blues are, you don't want to be the forward who doesn't get back. So that's first and foremost. And number 2, we've got to give so much credit to this defense. There's been so much criticism, including myself, probably us on the pod.
Absolutely.
I know around the league they're talking about, okay, Nick Leddy's washed up, Justin Falk's washed up. Oh my gosh, you're going to get another guy washed up, Cam Fowler. And the one thing that I can say, generally speaking, about this defense and those guys that I just mentioned in particular is they are veterans who make simple plays and smart plays, and they can skate. So the combination of those 2 things, skate and smarts, allows them to kill those plays and get the puck out of the zone. And then Binnington's not seeing the high danger chances that you might see. And then, oh, by the way, he's the player of the month, number 3 star, so he's playing well too. So I think that's what we have. We have a combination of the forwards getting back, the D making smart plays, and Binnington playing so well. And one stat, I tweeted it yesterday. Did anybody not think this team was going to take a fall when Colton Parayko left the lineup?
I mean, no doubt.
This is unbelievable. And I know other people have reported it. The place that I saw, Shayna, a colleague at The Athletic, said that the Blues have the lowest goals against per 60 minutes in the league since Colton Parayko left the lineup.
Have allowed the fewest even strength goals, too, in the National Hockey League.
You know what you're doing to make that happen? You're working your friggin' ass off.
Yeah.
Every friggin' minute of the game. It's not that crap that it was the first 2/3 of the season where it was, we're going to play 20, and then we're going to rest for 20, and then maybe in the last third period, maybe we might play 10 of those. This is like 60 minutes, balls to the wall. Also, listen, I can see how maybe folks, when we got Cam Fowler, were kind of whatever. I don't remember a Blues player that I enjoy watching with the puck, defenseman-wise, as much as him.
Yeah.
Watching, and I know I said this a couple of podcasts ago, but, there's a million MVPs on this team for real. In Benner, in Holloway, in Kyrou, there's a million. But I feel like Cam Fowler is kind of like an almost unheralded sort of MVP because it just seems like since he got here, the defense just gelled, and they have been fantastic since he got here.
I saw Thomas Drance, your colleague at The Athletic, and Chris Pronger tweet about this last night, and I want both of your thoughts. They both said Cam Fowler, best trade acquisition this season in the National Hockey League.
Yeah.
I mean, the only one that I could have the argument with is Mikko Rantanen from Carolina to Dallas, but I don't think you can label that or grade that unless they win the Stanley Cup. Now, I know he's still there, but I personally think that is, if it's not number 1, it's tied for first in terms of the best trade that's taken place this year.
And plus, you're adding a superstar to a Stanley Cup contender with Rantanen to Dallas, right? And in this situation, Cam Fowler, like Donnie said, there's been a lot of players who have contributed and could be in that MVP conversation, and I don't know that Cam Fowler fits like an MVP, but I know you're not saying that, but I'm saying, like, the way he has played, the Blues would not be where they're at without him. It's just plain and simple. The way he played with Colton Parayko, when Parayko was healthy, he gave him that top pair guy. It allows you to play Broberg with Justin Falk. That solidifies the second pair. And then, I've given Nick Leddy credit, and I think he deserves it at times, maybe not at other times, but you've got to give him credit, too, up there playing with Cam Fowler.
And Justin Falk, who's been playing 23 minutes since Parayko went down.
So I agree that, Alex asked the question, if it's not the best trade pickup this season, it's top 2 or 3.
And just, this is the part that baffles me, because when they said that last night, I'm like, okay, well, go back and what was that trade? Because I kind of remember it. They traded a second-round pick in 2027 in Jeremy Biakabatuka, who wasn't a draft pick by the Blues, but he's also still in the East Coast Hockey League for Anaheim. and they got 50% salary retention on Cam Fowler's
That's the big
deal,
thing there.
and they got a 4th-round pick in 2027 for that. So people were upset that the Blues didn't make a trade at the deadline when Parayko went down, and I think people are fine about that now, but Doug Armstrong made that trade deadline trade 2 months prior to the deadline, and he paid less than what a defenseman, like think of what Brandon Carlo got from Boston. Like Toronto had to trade Fraser Minton and a 1st-round draft pick to get Brandon Carlo, and Cam Fowler was gotten for essentially a 3rd-round draft pick and an East Coast Hockey League defenseman.
Yeah, and let's not forget too that when Fowler came here, that was way before Leddy came back.
Yeah.
So he was able to solidify that defense, from having a experienced top 6 until Nick Leddy got back. Because remember at the time, I mean, you're going back to Scott Perinovich, P.O. Joseph, those
Ryan
guys
Suter
that you were
was playing your top pair.
Ryan Suter playing the top pair. So, yeah, I definitely think that's on.
Well, one of the great things last night as well is you got the first NHL game for our boy, number 21, Mr. Jimmy Snuggerud. Guys, I want to know what you thought of the young man and his play last night. And I would like to start it by saying when I started doing this podcast with Jamie, one of the things that he kind of instilled in me is look who is on the ice late in the games and in big times of the game. And I want to say that it was something like 2 minutes left in the game, maybe 3, but I mean, you're talking the end of the game, and Coach had Jimmy Snuggerud in his first freaking NHL game out there, so I'm assuming that they really liked what they saw from 21.
Okay, Donnie, it was 2:02 down to 59. That was the last shift of the game.
Come on, Donnie.
No, I did.
Right.
Sorry, boys. Sorry.
I did a shift-by-shift breakdown, so that's the only reason I knew that 2:02 down to 59.
Hey, look, you see how JR didn't have any notes on that one either.
No
right?
notes. Yeah. All right, here, buddy. But
I read every one of your articles. God dang it, this drives me nuts.
You're absolutely right. But the funny part
will put it out later, and we'll read it.
So the whole game, I'm charting his shifts because I end up doing like a video of each one. And I get down to late in the game, and I think, okay, I'm done. He's not coming back out. They're going to shorten the bench. Oh, that was my last shift. No more video to cut. This is great. Oh, my God. Here he comes with 2:02 left to go in the game. And Jim Montgomery last night, he answered that question. He said, hey, he's making plays. Like, I trust him. Trust a guy who literally was on the college ice, 5 days ago in a game that the Blues need to beat a Detroit team. So that was phenomenal. And we did ask Jimmy Snuggerud about that, and he said, gosh, just to be out there in those situations, that's amazing. Hey, and one more note Alex will pick up is number 21. You said, hey, we're going to talk about our boy number 21. So you saw his comment from a couple days ago. He said that, he's number 81. He can't have that number because that's Dylan Holloway's number. So the Blues sent him a list of options. He said, 21. And he said, it doesn't matter. I play for what's on front, the crest, which is a total Bobby Plager answer, right?
Totally is.
And I tweeted that. And, Twitter these days, you X, whatever you want to call it. I don't know. There's not as many people replying, liking. This one gets a couple thousand likes. So 50-year-old Jeremy, who is not hip anymore whatsoever, never was actually. I'm talking to Jimmy at his locker yesterday, and dorky Jeremy said, you should have seen the tweet when you said that. There was 2,000 likes on that thing. And he's like, wow, really? Like, he didn't know that, like, that comment would endear him to Blues fans.
Well, and think of the other guy that had that comment earlier this year was Dylan Holloway.
Yeah.
Right? Where after he got hit in his neck and he went back out for another shift and then passed out on the bench, and he was like, well, I just needed to finish my shift. And it's like, okay, cool. Like, way to endear yourself to Blues fans right away. The other part, too, with Snuggerud that I was caught off guard with was Monty said the next shift in overtime was going to be Snuggerud and Neighbors jumping over the board.
Wow,
like, think about that for a minute. That's a guy who is 20 years old, who just got done with college, who is playing for a team that won 9 in a row, played them with the opportunity to tie the game with late in the period, and then was going to put them out there at 3-on-3 overtime.
Could you imagine if Snuggerud finishes that game off?
Oh, my God.
A real big piece of me that was hoping that was going to happen.
I would have ran around the block. I would have been out. That would have been
Hands
something
off,
else.
too. Around the block. Hands off. We're all going streaking.
Okay, so real quick. So in seeing Dvorsky's first game, v. Snuggerud's first game, it seems as though Coach had a little bit more faith along the Snuggerud route. Would you say that?
Just the fact that he played him late in the game.
Yeah.
And
then
the
the
ice time pretty
I think
similar.
It's the position, too.
Yeah,
center is just such a responsible position that you can't take a shift off. Not saying Snuggerud did, but one mistake will be in the back of your net if you're the centerman. And there's a lot more that you have to learn about the game rather than the winger, to where it's more like you allow your centerman to kind of set things up, the play for you, and you just go to the places that they need you to be. And that's at least what it looked like with Snuggerud. Like, he knew where he needed to be and when he needed to be there, and he tried to keep plays alive. He got a couple of shots off. But, yeah, I mean, they were different in the sense, like, I think both actually played about 10 minutes. I think Dvorsky was around 10 when he played. But they were used in different situations, because I think there was a little bit more of a understanding with Dvorsky. There's more to learn with this position than just Snuggerud stepping in.
Would you see an opportunity before the end of the year that both of those kids are in the lineup together?
I doubt it.
Probably not, right?
Yeah, it's just going to be tough, because right now you're the Blues. You're 1 point up on Minnesota. Minnesota's got a game in hand for that first wild card. And even if you slip down in second, I mean, Calgary, lost last night, so you got a little
9 right up on them now.
Yeah, so but they're resilient. They've won a couple games that they shouldn't have won. So I'd probably be careful. I can't imagine that both of them will be out there.
I think the only way is if that Utah game, when you play it, you've officially clinched a playoff spot.
Yeah, that could be. Sorry, if you clinch, then
that's the only spot. But even then, I could make the argument of, does it make sense to pull guys out? And I know you like to rest them potentially, like a Shen or a Sundqvist, to get them a little bit more rest before they play, but I just don't know if you want to disrupt anything. If that team's still in the middle of playing well, and I highly doubt they're in a win streak still, but maybe they're on a 3-game win streak at that time. I don't know if you want to disrupt that going into the playoffs. It's just a different beast. Plus, you have to remember, I guess we can start saying when the playoffs happen now with this team. They play Tuesday, and then they don't play again until potentially Friday or Saturday when the playoffs start. Mm-hmm. There are teams that play on Wednesday and Thursday, so there's a chance, but I actually wonder if we see Dvorsky potentially go back with the Thunderbirds, because they're in a playoffs race right now, and you give them more opportunities to play.
Yeah, that's kind of one of the things that I was curious about. Is it at what line here is it's good for you to sit in the press box and to learn and to watch, and then when does that line come? All right, man, it's been too long. You got to play.
I'd rather him be up here. I mean, I saw him yesterday at the morning skate. He was skating with Radek Faksa, and they were talking. They were working on different stuff. I know he's been working with Sundqvist. You're working with Steve Ott in terms of face-offs. You're watching film. I'd much rather the guy be around Claude Julien, Steve Ott, Jim Montgomery, and all these players than go back to the Thunderbirds.
Right, and I agree. It's easy for us to say we don't have much invested in Springfield, what they do in terms of, obviously their future. But, this year, right now, Snuggerud, Dvorsky, obviously Snuggerud has to stay here, but Dvorsky, let him keep soaking this up. And can you imagine the kick in the pants it would be, your Dvorsky, Snuggerud comes in, he gets in a game, and all of a sudden they say, okay, you're headed back to Springfield.
Yeah. I didn't think about that, the mental part of that, too.
Yeah, and so we had to go in the locker room a couple days ago, and I didn't have a chance to watch the players who stayed out on the practice ice, but I think our good friend Carrie, big Blues fan, I don't know if she listens, she tweeted a video. It was, I believe, Bolduc, Snuggerud, Dvorsky, and maybe Holloway.
Yeah.
And there was
Neighbors was out there too.
Neighbors. And so the 3 or 4 of them out there, I mean, that's right there. I mean, Dvorsky out there an hour after practice working with those guys, you can't top that.
Yeah.
Everything about this group of younger players, I'm just going to start running my mouth to other organizations, because we're going to be good and we're going to be obnoxiously good. And I can't wait to be completely obnoxious about it. I want to talk about the competition for these wild card spots. Is Minnesota playing better? Is there anybody that you see right now that is very much a threat? Every time that I think Calgary is going to go away, they don't. And that is a team that I probably know 3 or 4 guys on that lineup, and they are in that lineup, and they have seemed to all year long, every time they've needed to win, find a way to win. So, I mean, it's kind of a respect I have a little bit for them and what they've been doing. Now, everybody else can go to hell. But, I mean, but those guys in particular, is there somebody, guys, that you're worried about? Do you see the Blues, in the end, catching Minnesota for that first wild card?
Yeah, I personally do. I think they knock down Minnesota a little bit. I think Minnesota still gets into the playoffs. Calgary's playing good, but at some point that Cinderella story is going to strike midnight, in my opinion. Like, they've played well. They've got a pretty tough schedule down the stretch, because they do play a lot of games in a little amount of time, because they have, 9 still to play, 8 still to play in the season. I think Calgary and Vancouver still are legitimate threats of taking down Minnesota or St. Louis, but St. Louis feels like they're starting to distance themselves. Minnesota, I mean, I guess they've been playing kind of better, but they're still without Kaprizov and Eriksson Ek.
Right.
Like, that's a massive hole to have. But, I mean, Calgary's 6 out still, Vancouver's 7 out still. Both have a game in hand on Minnesota, 2 on St. Louis. I'm not as worried, like, as the Blues with those teams, unless you really stub your toe and, like, fall back down to earth. But if you're Minnesota, I think you have to start being a little concerned.
Yeah, definitely. And their beat writer at The Athletic, Mike Russo, a friend of mine,
He's livid.
He's livid. He's been saying, and, you know, we don't get caught up in what the team does. We get caught up in what city they go to in the playoffs and when the options are Winnipeg and Vegas.
Yeah, yep.
So he and I have been kind of going back and forth because it looked like Blues might be going to Winnipeg, Wild to Vegas, and now it kind of flip-flops a little bit. So I got the emoji, what's it called, where you got the steam head and the cuss words
I can't wait
taping the mouth.
I can't wait for a picture of JR at a blackjack table at the Bellagio and just
with
send
a
it to
cigar.
Mike Russo.
Send it to Russo.
How's Winnipeg?
Yeah.
Well, you got a thumbs up. Hey.
Yeah.
You should wear a big jacket while you're sitting at that table and say, it's cold in the casino.
I can't wear a small jacket, so I have to wear a big one. But, hey, let's look at this Minnesota Wild schedule the rest of the way because I really do think, like you guys, that the Blues can hang on to this spot even though the Wild have the game in hand. But you look at their next couple games. They are today the 2nd, Wednesday. Yep. I told you guys I'm bad with
April
the days
Fools.
of the week. Yeah, I saw something on the
You
internet.
are really
that said,
struggling with day of the week, man.
something on the internet. It said it's April 2nd. You can believe everything again on the internet. So April 2nd, today, Wednesday, they are at the Rangers. Then they are at the Islanders. Then they have 2 games, Dallas, tough one. Then San Jose, not a tough one. We're describing each of these games. On the road.
Listening to NPR.
Calgary, welcome to NPR. Calgary and Vancouver, so those are games that matter, right?
Yeah,
those 2. And then they wrap up with a home game against Anaheim, so NPR, this is not a tough game.
There are 2 games that don't matter.
So, yeah, there's a couple games in there that are tough, and they have the one in hand, but, you know.
Yeah. But, like, the situation they're in, they can't lose.
Yeah.
Like if you lose, it gets even harder. So, like, as it stands now, saying they win at their last 8 games, that would get them to 98 points. So Minnesota would need 11 points. The Blues would need 9 points to eliminate them. So that's 9 points in the final 6 games of the season for the Blues to eliminate Calgary. But every time Calgary loses, that point number decreases even more. So, like, what you're saying is Calgary is going to have to go 8-0 down the stretch, and the Blues would have to play 500 hockey and still eliminate the Calgary Flames. And the number's a little bit bigger for the Vancouver Canucks. What they're at, 8 games left, so their elimination number is 97 points, so the Blues need 9 points to eliminate them. So, like, right now, Calgary and Vancouver are in a position that even if the Blues lose a game, they still have to win that game. And, look, Anaheim and San Jose are cupcakes. But you also have to think about those teams that play a lot of rookies that go out there to prove themselves. You know, you have the opportunity to play upset in those situations.
You don't have anything to lose.
Yeah, typically those teams are, in my opinion, some of the tough competitions to play against, unlike Dallas down the stretch, who maybe sits a couple of guys since they're in the playoffs.
Wow. Well, I mean, just the fact that we are even having this friggin' conversation is something that I am so absolutely unbelievably stoked with.
Hey, can we give a shout out to our guy here last night? Amazing
Who's
job.
that?
I was just going
Just gonna do it.
I was just going to actually ask Mr. Ferrario.
Yes, Mr.
Will
Howdy.
there be more of you doing the play-by-play in place of Mr. Kerber, which you did last night during the broadcast, the radio broadcast?
There will be. One more. Thursday will be my curtain call against Pittsburgh.
Dude, how ridiculous, A, how much fun do you do this? And B, let's be very honest, how nervous does it make you?
Last night I was very nervous, and it was mostly because I didn't want to be the guy on the call that stopped the streak. Like
I didn't even think about
I told
that.
Curbs that when he gave that to me, I'm like, Curbs, seriously, like you couldn't have lost one of those games on
You
the
almost
road.
did.
I know, I almost did. And
Your Twitter would have been disgusting.
I looked at Joe and I'm like, they can't lose with me up here, man. And
Yeah.
Joe's like, no, you'll be fine. So I was nervous about that. I was nervous about Snuggerud. I mean, I've only done 3 other play-by-plays, and it was around a 6-year span. So, like, it's been a while.
That
and
sure sounded like it. No,
Yeah,
Joe, he
it was
was
rusty.
he was amazing. Seriously,
JR
so,
actually texted me, and he said, you are dog, and it
no,
was the poop emoji.
get out.
Wow,
No, he was
no.
great. I sat next to BK last night in the press box, and I thought we were
sorry.
going to get BKO'd there.
Yeah,
at the
you
end.
almost did, actually.
But Alex was great. I leaned over to BK several times, and I said, he sounds awesome. Like the energy, the enunciation, I told Alex whenever your emotions rise, Kerber, does an unbelievable job. He's such a pro, does a great job, and kudos to him. He had an operation, so it
little
allowed
medical
you to get
procedure
in
with
there,
his back.
and I know he was listening and rooting for you. But I know you were probably going to give him some kudos there, and I just wanted to make sure we did that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, you know what's so amazing to me about it, Alex, is that if I go on vacation for a week and then I come back to do a shift, I feel as though I don't even remember how I do what it is that I do. Like, it takes me a minute to get back into the rhythm of what I do every day. And once you get into that rhythm, then it makes going in and doing the shifts, man, it's fairly easy. But, dude, when you are not in that rhythm, in that routine, that is really difficult. So, like, is there a part of the game, like, did it take you a minute to sort of get into a groove, and then you kind of be like, all right, I got this?
Yeah, the first period's typically the roughest for me, and it's just because you're getting accustomed to the names on the opposite side. You're getting the phrasing and the timing down right. So the first 10 minutes of the first period is I always say it's a little choppy, and I hate it because, like, you're your worst critic, and so, like, in my head, every commercial break's like, oh, you idiot. Like, I think last night I said Cam Fowler made a save on a loose puck in front of the net, and it was Nick Leddy. And that 2-minute commercial break, I was like, you idiot, piece of what the? And then after that, you get back down to earth. But yeah, like, as it goes, I feel like it got a little bit easier. But I always, like, peek behind the curtain for this. Every time I find out that I get the chance to do this, which I'm always so humbled and blessed that Curbs chooses me for this, that next day I go back and, like, pro tip, I turn on NHL 25. I put it on simulation with the two teams, and I just do play-by-play of that. Like, it's just to kind of warm up.
Yeah,
it's just
that makes sense.
Up, and obviously it is not the same when you get to an NHL game, but...
Well, sure, but, like, that makes sense, though, as far as, like, a bit of a warm-up to at least sort of, like,
That's
get
awesome.
you in the cadence of everything.
It's just kind of the way for me to kind of get going with it. I mean, the biggest thing with hockey play-by-play is you just don't want to use the same word over and over. And I did it a couple times in the first period, and so you're building towards it. But as long as I don't butcher the goal calls and make sure that there's excitement in my goal call, that's the only thing I care about. And I had a ton of, I put my phone in airplane mode when I did the broadcast. I had a ton of texts and tweets from people that said it was fun to listen to. They got excited with it. So that's all I care about. And it's just, I mean, again, it's something that I wanted to pursue in college and be a play-by-play guy. Life takes you different directions. I love getting to do my talk show and getting to host pre and post. But the fact that I still get to do the play-by-plays every once in a while is kind of, it's like, it lights that fire.
I wish we had a little mashup, and maybe we could just create it here where Alex does the Kyrou goal call or the overtime goal call, and I want to hear Donnie scream.
You want me to see if I find it? Let me see if I can find it real quick for Donnie.
Well, I think what's also so amazing about this skill, Alex, is man, so few people have the ability to do it. So, like, let's say right now the career is in a spot where maybe it's not something that you want to do. Well, dude, maybe when your girls get older and you've got a little bit more time, maybe that's an avenue in which that you can take that not hardly anyone can do.
I don't know how they do it. That's why I chose the profession I did, because it has a cursor and you can hit the backspace and delete it before you submit it. It's not
Radio has that too. Radio has that too. It's just on post you get to do it. You want to hear?
Do you have it? Do you have it?
No,
Okay, wait. Before you play, I want to hear Donnie act like he's in real time here.
Hold on. All right, so
I have no dump
Yeah,
buttons.
so what? Wait, Donnie, what's this look like? Yours is your couch?
yes, we have like one of those the L-shaped couches, you know? I love our couch. And so I was in the corner. I got a whole bunch of pillows behind me, but as it's getting late in the game and the Blues are pushing because it's 6-on-5 or whatever the hell it is, I'm on the edge of the couch, all right? I'm sitting, but I'm on the edge of the couch.
Cam Talbot out to play it for Detroit. Rims it up the boards. Holloway stops it near side. He'll skate up along the near side boards with it. Looks for options. Gets it far side over to Jordan Kyrou. Pavel Buchnevich shot deflected in front by Detroit. Kyrou. Thomas. Moves it over to Kyrou. 35 seconds to play. Now Holloway near side. Up to Fowler. 28 seconds. Fowler said he scored! Deflection by Jordan Kyrou in front of Cam Talbot with 28 seconds to play. And the Blues tie things up to keep the win streak alive.
All right, hold on here. Real quick, before I freak out anymore. Dude, that's a great freaking call, man.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
Dude, like, I mean, that's something I've always wanted to do. And, like, I'll mess around with it in the car or whatever and then realize, you're good for records, not for sports. But that is so freaking amazing.
Yeah.
For you to be able to, like, pace yourself like that, I would be freaking out I would be yelling into the microphone the entire time. That is just so awesome,
I
man.
looked down right before the puck went in. I looked looked down or over to check the time because play-by-play, you're supposed to make sure people know how much time's on the board. And so I looked to see 29 seconds, and I look back at Joey screaming. I'm like, like, no!
Dude, that's absolutely fantastic. So
appreciate
you're
it,
in the
man.
booth again Thursday night against Pittsburgh.
Thursday, and then Curbs will be back, hopefully to call 12 straight wins. I can tie the franchise record for Curbs, and then he gets the franchise record on Saturday against Colorado. But against Pittsburgh, I'll get to call that. By the way, my dad and I talked yesterday because my dad is the reason I'm a big hockey fan. I called him and told him when I found out, and I'm like, Dad, I'm calling play-by-play for the Detroit Red Wings. And he goes, oh, my God. He goes, what do you think 9-year-old Ferrario's thinking right now? I'm like, yeah, you're right. I used to hate the Red Wings. To get to call that game and then get to call a game on Thursday with Crosby on the ice is going to be awesome.
Real quick, and I know we got to wrap up, and I know you guys got to get out of here, but really think about this, okay, for just a second.
Seriously.
And I'm sure that you probably do, all right? But the 10-year-old version of any of the three of us here in St. Louis, you would... If somebody would have told me at 10 that I get to do what I get to do now,
Yep.
not only with music, but with I would have been like, you're nuts.
Yep.
No,
Never.
it's pinch me stuff all the time, even when it's like a crummy week. It's still like, holy ish, I can't believe that I get to do this.
Well, I tell my dad all the time, people always say, like, aren't you exhausted? And I'm sure you get this nonstop too, JR, for how much you travel, and Donnie for how much you're in this building. And it's like, aren't you exhausted? I'm like, yeah, but I can never complain about it because I could be out doing pest control or I could be doing construction. It's like, I'll take exhaustion of watching hockey games over anything else any day of the week.
And by the way, your family owned a pest control. That's why he used that. So all the pest control people listening thinks you just dumped on him. That's not what he said.
No. I was a pest control. I was like you, saving the world from bugs.
Dude, and it was, I mean, for me, it was not pest control, but my dad was a machine operator.
Yeah.
From 1967 to, I don't know, 99 or something like that. Like, I saw that dude come home with bloody knuckles with like all of the time. And I was just like, I cannot handle that. So I'm going to have to figure something else out.
I don't want that.
And it's just so amazing because we get to have these conversations and things.
So he goes back into his room. WKRP in Cincinnati.
Dude, I loved that show. That show was highly influential for me. I used to watch that with my dad all of the time. And one of the best theme songs of all time, but we can talk about that another time.
List of the top 10 theme songs next on the podcast.
Well, but age would probably weigh into that. You're going to probably find some newer
thought
stuff.
that was Bill Murray, though, and we were on top of the Bill Murray movies.
That's Bill Murray, though, man. I feel like he kind of supersedes.
I guess we'll...
You know what? As long as the Blues keep winning, I don't give a damn. You know what I mean? In all reality,
it all works.
All right, so we're going to wrap this edition of the Last Minute Blues podcast. We appreciate you as always listening to the program. Alex Ferrario from 101 ESPN, Jeremy Rutherford from The Athletic, for our homeboy Jeff Burton, who would be flipping his lid watching these Blues right now. It's the Last Minute Blues podcast. I'm Donnie Fandango, and as always, let's go Blues.
The Last Minute Blues podcast. Hear more at 1057thepoint.com.